be good. That phone that medal. I hope of medal. I really want to make it to the final.
NTA, the fourth largest at studio, as it were. You're most welcome on to One on One. My name is Ohi Alegbe, and today I have a very distinguished Nigerian on the program, a man who leads a movement that is concerned not only about the spiritual well-being of Nigerians, but also their material emancipation, particularly from those things that make people not to enjoy their stay here on this plane of existence. He was born on the 5th day of May in 1953 in Zaria City, had his traditional Quranic and Islamic education from a very tender age till he was 16, when he moved on to the Provincial Arabic School in Zaria, a school where the then Zaria Native Authority was locally training Arabic teachers for its primary schools. Between 1971 and 1975, he attended the famous School for Arabic Studies in Kano. That was a school that was founded in 1934 and is regarded as the law school, and it's in fact been described as the precursor to Bayero University. And almost 100% of the northern Grand Cadis attended that same school. Thereafter, on his own, he studied for the Grade 2 Teacher Certificate and started for the GCE as a private student in subjects like government, economics. And in 1975, after finishing school exams, he started for the advanced level GCE in government, economics, Hausa, and Islamic studies. And that found him later at the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, where he majored in economics, coming out with a first-class honors degree in economics. He was an active member of the Muslim body then at school, at the Ahmadu Bello University, and also at the national level. He later became the Secretary General of the Muslim Students Society. From his students' days till this moment, he is an Islamic scholar, an activist. He's engaged in learning, research, and teaching Islamic studies. Today, he is the leader of the Islamic movement in Nigeria, beyond which, of course, is the fact that successive governments in Nigeria have had to ask him to get out of circulation one way or the other. He has had a total of 9 years in 9 different prisons across the country. The most famous being the Enugu experience between 1981 and 1984, another notorious interrogation center at the former NSO in Lagos, and the Kirikiri Maximum Security Prison in 85, Port Harcourt Prison 87 to 89, and 1996 to 1997, and also Kaduna between 1987 and 1998. It does appear as if most of his active life is spent behind bars when he has not been charged to court. I'm very proud and happy to welcome on to One on One this morning a man who is widely traveled, widely read, an Islamic scholar of repute, Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky. You're welcome onto the program.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you spend more time behind bars than out there. You know, what has always been the problem? You know, each government seems to want to say, listen, gentlemen, we don't want you out here.
Yeah, well, in the 80s in particular, the years between 1981 and 89, that out of those 9 years, I spent 7 in prison. Well, as the charges have always been sedition, so it is very clear the charges have been on my ideas. One can see that it seems each government considered as dangerous someone who has some influence upon the people, unless, of course, they can use him to gain access to the same people. So since I was not ready to sell my ideas in their market, so they felt that I shouldn't be there at all. And the last regime even went further than that. They felt that I had no right to exist even. After arresting me, they opened fire on those who demonstrated to demand my release, killing a number of people, about 50-something in number in all, and also demolish my house and removed my family, as if, you know, since I don't subscribe to the ideas of the government, they feel that maybe I don't have the right to even exist. Yes. So,
what are these ideas that people are uncomfortable with?
Not the people. People are very comfortable with my ideas.
Those in authority.
Those in authority are not. Those in authority consider, as I've told you, that someone who has influence on people to be dangerous. And my ideas are nothing short of this yearning and aspiration of the people. I only identify myself with it. It's not that I invented any idea of my own. It is my belief that ever since we were captured or defeated by the British colonialists, it has been the yearning and aspiration of our people to go back to the same system of life which was controlling their lives before they were defeated, and that is Islam.
Okay.
Yeah, 100 years before the coming of the colonialists, the Sheikh Usman Dampodio, after waging a jihad, had established an empire or a nation based on moral teachings of Islam, which the people, at least of our own side of the country, identify with. And after their defeat, you know, the colonialists used the emirs a sort of way to get to the people. So the people could see the emirs, but the emirs were no longer the leaders. The colonialists were. Well, I will say the same situation up to now. The successive regimes have been using the emirs as if they are the religious leaders to get it to the people. So I identified with the idea of the people that we ought to be governed by our own beliefs.
Okay.
Yeah. And since we are Muslims, it is Islam that should absolutely govern our life.
Okay.
Well, that goes well with the people.
Yes, that seems to be...
but not with the government.
Yes. That seems to be a contradiction in terms of the fact that we now have, you know, even before we come into the democratic arrangement we have in place now, we had a military regime, you know, or whatever governments we had at that time. In other words, you would have preferred that whoever would be head of state or whoever would be the leader of the people, even at the local government level, at the state level and all that, would be Islamic scholars or what?
No, we are speaking about the system, not necessarily the people. Islamic system is basically a moral system, a system based on moral principles which linked mankind with his creator. So he is seen first and foremost as the creation of God and representative of God on us. This earth was created by Allah. This is our belief. We who dwell on the earth are created by the same God. And that God has not created us for nothing. We should consider what he requires from us first. All right. Now, when you give due to that, you know, you at least recognize that you are a nation that did not come out of nothing. You are created by someone, and there is certain things due for him. I agree that there are people in the same nation who may not share the same views, but that does not mean that those who share the view should put it aside. Yeah, that's to say we have to have a certain compromise level where we don't do away with our own beliefs and we don't infringe on the right of others. Yes.
That was it.
But when they are saying, the authorities are saying no, it shouldn't be there at all. But you know, after many years, it seems after all the confusions, now people, even those in authority, are speaking with religious language, which means I have not been wrong.
You have not been wrong all along.
Yes.
But the interesting aspect of it all, you know, because that brings us to the Sharia issue now. Some states have declared, you know, Sharia as a system of life and living. we think of, immediately mentioned Kano State, we mentioned Zamfara State, and some other states that have done that. But again, you seem to disagree with the interpretation or the implementation of the Sharia in some of the states. Well, what is the point of disagreement?
Well, a point of correction first. No state in this country has declared Sharia as a system of life and living. Okay. No state even declared it as a legal system. Okay. Actually, the sole legal system of the state. In the research state which has declared Islam as the system of living, we won't have any problem with that. That's what I've been asking for. But these states that claim to have applied Sharia, I would start with Zamfara, which first started it. The governor of the Zamfara state, after perhaps studying the Nigerian constitution, realized that in the provision of the constitution, it allows him to apply the Sharia. All right. And that section is the section which permits every citizen to practice a religion of his choice, as an individual or in association with others. So he said that he decided to practice it in association with the Zamfara state people. And the Sharia being part of the Islamic religion, since he is allowed to practice the religion of his choice, he can as well also practice the Sharia. This is part of a fundamental right of the Nigerian citizen. Yes. All right. Good enough. But what we consider that to be a welcome development. Our only reservation is that Sharia, being a divine law, it's a law of God, not law of man, cannot come under the law of man. All right.
It is supreme to the law of man.
Here you will have contradiction between two laws that claim supremacy. And in the event of clash between the two supreme, which will surrender its own supremacy and be subjected to the other. Okay. And since it is very obvious that he interpreted that from the Nigerian constitution, it follows that the Nigerian constitution is supreme. And here you have a supreme being placed under another supreme. Okay. How much more when the Islamic law, the Sharia, is the law of God, not law of man. Now you find, and it is supreme because God is supreme. Now you place it under a law made by man, and you said that that law of man is superior to it. Then you definitely
will be a contradiction in terms.
Yeah, that is what you will end up having is not Sharia as such, but partial Sharia. Maybe you will pick some aspects of it, and into even that aspect, it will be subject to your own interpretation, not to God's own interpretation. So this explanation of mine is considered to be opposition.
Well, that's a bit, it's like the extreme position now, as it were.
Yeah, that's true. But you have to understand that Sharia, as the law of God, is God Himself that has a way He wants it to be practiced. It came through a message brought by His messenger, at least that is complete. And that messenger also practiced it. And there are so many reformers in history that have also undertaken some reformations and adopted Sharia. One typical example of Sheikh Osman Dampodio about 2 centuries ago. He found the Hausa rulers in those days. Of course, majority of them were Muslims at that time, but they were not practicing their system of government according to the teaching of Islam. So he called them to come to terms with Islam, to practice it according to Islam, and they fought him in turn. In the end, he was able, by the assistance of Allah, to defeat them and establish an empire based on Islamic teachings and applied Sharia laws. All right. this shows us this is the way to do it.
Okay. There is a way it's done, and it's been done before.
Okay.
But right now, the states that are declaring Sharia are not quite doing it
that way.
What are the issues that they are not quite abiding by in the interpretation and in the implementation of the Sharia? Does it mean, for instance, if we paint a scenario, does it mean, for instance, that whoever would be at the head of, say, Zamfara state will not have to be a governor who operates by the constitution but operates purely by the Islamic code of existence?
Yeah, I will see that since we're asking the governors to do what they cannot do. All right. So why don't they come to what they can do and call it by its own name?
Which is likely to be what, for instance?
Legal reform.
Legal reform.
Yeah, and then here you are taking some aspect of Islamic law and place it in under the legal system of our country.
Okay.
So that legal system of the country already recognizes what is called Sharia, limited to Muslim personal law.
Okay.
All right. And even made provisions that there should be Sharia court of appeal for any state that desires it. And that will mean, of course, you cannot have a Sharia court of appeal without a lower court of Sharia.
Yes.
So obviously it means there had been lower courts of Sharia, even though they are not called Sharia courts, they are called area courts, but they are same Sharia courts. So these courts have been implementing partial Sharia. Now if you want to increase the jurisdiction of those courts to cover some aspects,
like criminal.
Exactly, like a criminal aspect. Then you can also say, we want to make a legal reform in which we will introduce more provisions of the Islamic law within our legal system.
Okay.
And then nobody will care about it. But you said that you are implementing full Sharia,
And that is
which can only be implemented by a full-scale Islamic state, under an Islamic government, of which you are not. All right. And then the people having, like I've earlier told you, that it has been their yearning and aspiration to have Islam. So hearing that, they all enthusiastically,
embraced it.
Yeah, they said they thought it was the same Islam which Sheikh Usman Danfodio has established. But this is mere legal reforms. Why don't you call it legal reforms and you are covered? But instead they decided to call it Sharia. And when it comes into practice, day and day, people will start to realize that how much of the Sharia is being applied, and how comes that the Sharia should be restricted by man when it is the law of God. And why is it that such and such provision cannot be practiced? And why is it also that some other laws contrary to the Sharia should go side by side with the Sharia?
These are the contradictions.
A lot of contradictions.
Yes. Have you been able to, your movement, have you been able to present this to some of the states that have declared Sharia?
Yeah, at least the Bayero University, I think last December also, had a seminar, national seminar on implementation of Sharia. And I was among those invited to present paper. In my paper, I pinpointed all those likely contradictions. I said that two options are open for the Muslims. Either full Sharia or partial Sharia. Each, according to me, is possible and very easy.
And what we are doing now is a partial Sharia.
Yeah, if you opt for a partial Sharia, it means that you will take some aspects of Islamic law, not the whole Islamic law itself, and place it under the Nigerian legal system, which is not Islamic.
Okay.
Right. And that will be possible, but without contradictions and conflicts.
Okay.
One of these we have already mentioned, the clash of two supremes, all right, which should give out its own supremacy. Will you configure as a Muslim that a Muslim will agree that the law of God should be
subsumed under the law of man?
You see, that's one. Another thing is two laws coming together, which are contradictory. One is positive, the other is negative. When the two comes together, they cancel one another.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you will also have that. Another thing is when you say that someone has a choice to decide to be judged, even if he commits a criminal offense, to be judged by either of the court.
Yes.
All right. Which makes it, in a way, it's not any effective law. Take for instance, if you can say that there's a law of robbery in Nigeria, but robbers have the choice. If you should be either shot or hung or set free.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know how many of the robbers will choose to be
shot.
You see, so you have that contradiction as well. When you say you have a choice, but when a law is imposed in a society, it simply governs the society. Right. These are some of the
contradictions,
contradictions, you know. And the Muslims themselves will continue to demand more. And what is more, another dimension which erupted, and that is the misunderstanding from the part of, I would say, the non-Muslims. All right. And the Muslims as well. The Muslims felt that it was Islam that has come back. The non-Muslims also felt that it was Islam that has come back. Hence, all throughout the debates, sometimes I find it pathetic even to read. They leave the central issue of state governments adopting partial Sharia as the legal system of the Nigerian nation, and instead attack the Islamic faith, the Islamic law, and sometimes even the Muslim people. Okay. I think most of the debates left the central theme. Yeah. These people have not said that we are talking on behalf of Islam or on behalf of the Muslim nation. They are saying that we are speaking as Nigerian citizens. We are also Nigerians. We have rights. And part of our rights is to practice our religion. And part of that religion has a law, and we will place that law under the law of the nation. Okay. So the argument should be whether that can be possible or not.
Or not, yes. I guess we'll move on to that. But there are fears. Whether they are genuine or not is another issue. Yeah. One from the non-Muslim, even some from the Muslims themselves, who think that, well, you know, some of their freedoms will be infringed upon if we have a total Sharia system, you know, brought to bear on Nigeria or in Nigerian aspects of Nigeria, parts of Nigeria in the year 2000, the 21st century. You know, the practice of Sharia itself, as Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky, how does it work? How does Sharia work?
Well, we need to define Sharia first. Yes. Whenever we are talking about Sharia here, people think of punishment. They think that it is a punishment system. But Sharia is much more than that.
Is it a reward system?
It is...
if it's not a punishment system?
It is a system of governance, and it is a legal system. Where it is applied, it is sovereign. It is superior even to the government. Like it's normally known that there are three arms of government: legislature, executive, and judiciary. To us, the judiciary is even superior to all, because whoever is the leader is also at the same time the supreme judge. All right, according to Islamic principle. And the legislature is governed by Sharia. The executive is governed by Sharia. How much or more of the judiciary? So Sharia is a law which governs a society in all aspects of its life. Right. But here, when they speak of Sharia, they are not talking in that terms. They are talking of...
How does it work? Where has it worked? I mean, this total Sharia system, how does it really work? And how does it work? Let's take a scenario. Let's take Zamfara State, for instance, and say, okay, they want to implement total Sharia, the real Sharia. Not the partial one, not the legal reforms. How does it work? What would be the position of the governor, for instance?
Okay.
Would it subsume it? Would it become a sheikh in order to rule? Would it become the grand qadi in order to, or what? How does it operate?
Yeah, this is what I'm trying to get at. Yes. Yeah, I'm saying that where Sharia works, it is separate, which means it is superior. It cannot be superior in a state, which that state is also part of a nation with another law which is superior to it. Okay. It's not possible. So when it works, supremacy has to be established. All right. And it was indeed established before the coming of colonialism. And in the community founded by the Prophet in Medina, it worked. All right. And even if presently in the Islamic Republic of Iran, it also works that way. When the assembly makes a law, they have to send it to the Council of Experts on Sharia.
Okay.
That will study the law and find if there is any provision of the law which contradicts with Sharia, they will turn the law back and tell them to change those sections.
Okay.
So the Sharia law is considered to be superior to everything there. So that's why the Sharia works. It is superior. But when you are interested in doing that, there are steps to take.
Okay.
And this is what I have been saying. First, you have to do away with the present system.
The Constitution.
Everything.
Yes.
Constitution inclusive. Second, you establish a supremacy of an Islamic system.
Okay.
Obviously, that means you have an Islamic government.
Yes.
Imposed.
Yes. You have an Islamic state.
That is true. Then also that Islamic state with that Islamic government will not even implement the punishments until when it provides a just and egalitarian society where nobody can be punished for a crime which the society has forced him to do.
Okay.
Then punishment comes last as a sort of protection.
What about the way of life of the people, how they live? Would it be any much different from the way we interact now, the way we live, and so on and so forth? I had Leila Dogonyaro on this program says, well, in fact, the real Sharia is very protective of women.
Yeah, that is true.
Yes.
I was expatiating on that yesterday in National Mosque at Abuja when I had a lecture on this Sharia. Actually, the life of the people will be based on mutual respect of human being, based on morality, and above all, fear of God. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask this against the backdrop of the fact that Nigeria has existed as a nation, well, from amalgamation 1914 and all that.
Yeah.
And people have mixed up together, you know, Muslims, non-Muslims, animists, Christians, born-again Christians, all the lot, and those who don't even believe in the existence of God.
Yeah.
And against the backdrop of the fundamental rights of people, how implementable is this total thing, or even the partial one? I think that is where the fears and apprehensions.
Yeah, you see, the partial one will be possible with contradictions. All right. The total one can be possible after a revolution.
After a revolution.
Yes.
We'll come back. And when we come back, we shall take on some other aspects of the Islamic movement in Nigeria with the leader of the group, Sheikh Ibrahim El Zakzaky. It's one-on-one. Please do not go away.